Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
History is often told through a selective lens, distorting, omitting, or even completely erasing the existence of entire communities. There are whispers of history buried beneath the soil of the American West, forgotten by mainstream narratives and hidden from public consciousness. Among these are the secret Black Indian settlements of Utah, communities that thrived in isolation, existing beyond the scrutiny of early colonial powers, government agencies, and historical record keepers. Who were these people? Why were their settlements hidden? And what does their existence reveal about the racial and cultural dynamics of the 19th century? Imagine a land where towering mountains stretch across the horizon, their snow-capped peaks contrasting against the red desert cliffs and endless plains. Beneath these landscapes, in the shadows of history, lived a people whose stories have been lost to time. They were the descendants of both African and indigenous ancestry, forming tight-knit settlements that blended the traditions of their ancestors. They were warriors, farmers, spiritual leaders, and traders, navigating a world that viewed them with suspicion and hostility. Their presence challenges conventional narratives of race and migration in the United States, revealing a rich and complex history that has long been shrouded in secrecy. What forces drove them into seclusion? Was it the threat of enslavement, persecution, or the relentless expansion of the U.S. government? And why has their story remained hidden for so long? This article delves into the secret Black Indian settlements of Utah, unearthing the history of these forgotten communities and piecing together the fragments left behind by oral traditions, historical records, and archaeological evidence. Their story is one of survival, resistance, and the unwavering pursuit of freedom in a world that sought to erase them. To understand the origins of these settlements, we must first explore the deep and complex relationship between African and indigenous peoples in North America. Long before Utah became a territory of the United States, Black people had already found refuge among Native American tribes. Some were runaway slaves who sought freedom far from the plantation economy of the South, while others were free individuals who traveled west in search of new opportunities. Many African Americans intermarried with Native peoples, forming unique mixed heritage communities that embraced both traditions. During Spanish colonial rule in the Americas, Africans were forcibly brought to the region as part of the transatlantic slave trade. Some of these enslaved Africans escaped and found refuge among indigenous tribes, who often shared a common struggle against European and later American expansion. Over time, Black and indigenous cultures intertwined, leading to the emergence of hybrid communities that resisted colonial oppression. By the time American settlers pushed westward into what is now Utah, these communities had already established themselves as resilient, self-sustaining societies. However, the arrival of American settlers, driven by manifest destiny, disrupted the fragile balance these communities had maintained. The U.S. government's policies of forced removal, land dispossession, and racial classification sought to erase the existence of mixed-race peoples, forcing many Black Indian communities into secrecy. Utah, with its vast and often uncharted landscapes, became one of the last refuges for those who wished to remain hidden. The rugged terrain of Utah provided the perfect cover for settlements that wished to remain undiscovered. Oral histories from indigenous elders and descendants of Black Indian communities speak of villages nestled in remote valleys, deep canyons, and along the banks of hidden rivers. These settlements were often built in places that were difficult to access, ensuring that outsiders would have little chance of stumbling upon them. Some historical records suggest that these Black Indian settlements existed as early as the mid-1800s, formed by runaway slaves, displaced indigenous groups, and free Black frontiersmen who had moved westward in search of a new life. Many of these communities practiced subsistence farming, hunting, and trading with nearby Native American tribes. They spoke multiple languages, blending indigenous dialects with English, Spanish, and African linguistic influences. The settlements also served as safe havens for those escaping persecution. During the height of the Underground Railroad, some fugitive slaves made their way westward rather than north to Canada, hoping to find freedom among indigenous tribes who had long resisted U.S. government control. In Utah, some of these escaped slaves found shelter among the Ute, Shoshone, and Paiute peoples, who offered them protection in exchange for their skills in farming, blacksmithing, and other trades. However, the need for secrecy was paramount. The presence of mixed Black and Indigenous communities threatened the rigid racial hierarchies imposed by American expansionists. Reports from early Mormon settlers and government officials describe encounters with dark-skinned Indians who exhibited African features, leading some historians to speculate that these were members of hidden Black Indian settlements. As racial tensions grew and anti-Black and anti-Indigenous policies intensified, these communities withdrew even further from the outside world, leaving behind few traces of their existence. Spirituality played a crucial role in maintaining the identity and resilience of Black Indian communities in Utah. Many of these settlements practiced a syncretic blend of African spiritual traditions and indigenous beliefs, creating unique religious practices that were passed down through generations. Rituals involving drumming, dance, and storytelling were common, serving as both a means of worship and a way to preserve cultural memory. Christianity also played a role in some of these communities, particularly among those who had been influenced by African American or Native American Christian missionaries. However, the version of Christianity practiced in these settlements often diverged from mainstream denominations, incorporating elements of ancestral veneration and earth-based spirituality. These religious practices not only provided comfort in times of hardship, but also reinforced a sense of identity and resistance against outside forces that sought to assimilate or destroy them. Why have the Black Indian settlements of Utah remained hidden for so long? The answer lies in the deliberate erasure of their history. Racial classification laws in the United States forced many mixed-race individuals to identify as either Black or Native American, effectively erasing the recognition of their dual heritage. Government records often ignored or miscategorized these communities, reducing their presence in historical documentation. Additionally, the rise of segregation and enforcement of racial purity laws in the late 19th and early 20th centuries further marginalized Black Indian peoples. Those who could pass as either Black or Indigenous often assimilated into one of these groups to avoid discrimination, leading to the gradual dissolution of distinct Black Indian identities. Over time, these settlements faded from historical memory, their existence reduced to scattered oral histories and a few fragmented records. The story of the secret Black Indian settlements of Utah is one of resilience, survival, and cultural fusion. These communities, hidden from history, challenge conventional narratives about race, migration, and identity in the American West. They reveal a past that is far more complex than the black and white version often presented in history books, highlighting the deep interconnections between African and Indigenous peoples. As more research is conducted and descendants begin to reclaim their heritage, the story of these hidden settlements is finally emerging from the shadows. Their legacy is a testament to the power of resistance and the enduring strength of those who refuse to be erased. By acknowledging their history, we take a step toward correcting the historical omissions that have kept their stories in the dark for so long.